The massive cheetah's amber eyes locked onto Bella, the golden retriever who had raised her. For a heartbeat, time froze. Everyone in the Cincinnati Wildlife Sanctuary held their breath, muscles tensed, waiting to see if the wild predator would remember the gentle dog who had been her mother, or if millions of years of evolutionary instinct would take over. The cheetah was crouched low, every muscle coiled like a spring, her spotted coat rippling with barely contained power. At 110 pounds of pure predatory force, she could end the dog's life in a single heartbeat. What happened next left the entire staff in tears and changed everything they thought they knew about the bonds between species. It started on a frigid February morning when a desperate call came into the sanctuary. A female cheetah named Sahara, one of their most successful breeding animals, had died during a complicated labor, leaving behind 3 tiny cubs no bigger than kittens. Their eyes were still closed, their spotted fur barely visible beneath the film of birth fluid. Without their mother's milk and warmth, the veterinary team gave them hours to live, maybe 6 at most. Their body temperatures were already dropping dangerously low. The sanctuary director, Patricia Morrison, a weathered woman with 25 years of wildlife experience, knew that hand-raising cheetahs was nearly impossible. She'd tried it twice before, and both times ended in heartbreak. The cubs needed constant care, warmth, and most importantly, a bond that no human could provide, no matter how dedicated. Bottle feeding could keep them alive, but without a mother's presence, cubs often failed to thrive, developing behavioral problems that made them unsuitable for any kind of life, even in captivity. That's when Patricia thought of Bella. Bella was a 5-year-old golden retriever who lived at the sanctuary as part of their animal ambassador program. She had just weaned her own litter of 7 puppies 2 weeks earlier and was still in that deep maternal phase where her instincts ran strong and her body was ready to nurture. Patricia had seen companion dogs successfully raise big cats before. It was rare, controversial even, but it was possible. With the clock ticking and no other options, Patricia made the call. She brought the 3 dying cubs to Bella's pen in the sanctuary's education center, carefully placing them near the golden retriever's belly. The cubs were cold to the touch, barely moving, their tiny mouths opening and closing in desperate search of milk they couldn't find. What happened next was pure magic. Bella lifted her head, sniffed the strange spotted creatures, and immediately her entire demeanor changed. Her ears came forward, her eyes softened, and she began licking the tiny cheetahs with firm, purposeful strokes, cleaning them just as she had done with her own puppies days after their birth. She nuzzled them close, shifting her body to provide the maximum warmth they desperately needed, and then, almost as if by divine intervention, the cubs latched on and began to nurse. Patricia stood there with tears streaming down her face, watching nature defy all logic. The cubs' body temperature stabilized within the hour. By evening, they were nursing vigorously, their tiny paws kneading against Bella's belly. Against all odds, they were going to survive.
For the next 8 weeks, Bella became a full-time mother to 3 cheetah cubs named Zara, Luna, and Thor. She fed them every 2 hours, cleaned them meticulously, and taught them how to play in the way only a mother can. The sanctuary staff watched in absolute amazement as the cubs would tumble over Bella's patient form, their needle-sharp claws catching in her fur, nibbling her ears with their tiny teeth and pouncing on her slowly swishing tail. Bella treated them exactly like her own children. When Thor got too rough with his sisters, she would discipline him with gentle but firm nips. When Luna wandered too far from the nest they'd created in the corner of the pen, Bella would call her back with soft, insistent barks. When Zara had trouble figuring out how to use her back legs for jumping, Bella demonstrated patiently, over and over, until the cub got it right. The education center became the sanctuary's most popular attraction. Visitors would press against the viewing glass, watching the unlikely family with wonder. Children would point and gasp as the spotted cubs climbed all over their golden mother. Photographers came from 3 states away to capture the incredible images. The story went viral on social media, bringing attention and much-needed donations to the sanctuary. But beneath the heartwarming scenes, the staff was documenting something scientifically fascinating. The cubs weren't just surviving, they were thriving in ways that hand-raised cubs never did. They were developing proper social skills, learning boundaries, and showing none of the neurotic behaviors that typically plagued orphaned big cats. As the weeks passed, the cubs started developing their natural cheetah behaviors. They would crouch low in the grass of their outdoor pen, stalking Bella's swishing tail with the intense focus of born hunters. They practiced their lightning-fast reflexes, chasing leaves that blew across the enclosure and pouncing on insects with increasing precision. But every single night, without fail, they would pile onto Bella, purring loudly, that strange motorboat sound that cheetahs make, as she licked their faces clean and nuzzled them to sleep. The bond was undeniable, transcending species in a way that seemed almost miraculous. Patricia would often sit and watch them, marveling at how Bella never seemed bothered by the fact that her children were completely different from her. Love, she realized, didn't require understanding. It just required showing up. But nature has its own rules, and those rules are written in blood and survival. By 6 months old, the cheetahs were already larger than Bella. Zara, the biggest, weighed 60 pounds of lean muscle. Their play had become rougher, their instincts sharper and more unpredictable. During one play session, Thor had accidentally scratched Bella's shoulder, leaving 3 long cuts that required stitches. It was an accident, he'd simply misjudged his strength, but it was a warning sign that couldn't be ignored. The sanctuary staff began to worry, and the conversations grew more urgent. These were wild animals, apex predators, with killing instincts hardwired into their DNA through millions of years of evolution. One moment of overexcitement, one instance of prey drive triggering incorrectly, and Bella could be seriously hurt, or worse.
It broke Patricia's heart, but she had no choice. The cheetahs had to be separated from Bella and moved to a proper, big cat enclosure where they could continue their development until the magnificent predators they were meant to be. The day of separation, Patricia cried harder than she had in years. Bella stood at the fence for 3 solid days, whining and calling for her cubs in a voice so mournful it hurt to hear. The cheetahs paced restlessly in their new enclosure, clearly distressed and missing their dog mother. They refused food for the first 48 hours. Luna wouldn't stop chirping, that baby sound, as if calling for Bella to come get her. But as weeks turned to months, they adapted to their new life. They learned to hunt using the sanctuary's enrichment programs. They developed their incredible speed, clocking in at nearly 65 miles per hour during training runs. They grew into magnificent adult cheetahs, sleek and powerful, with the confident bearing of apex predators. Bella, meanwhile, returned to her normal life at the sanctuary, though staff noticed she would often wander near the cheetah enclosure during her exercise time, staring through the fence with an expression that looked unmistakably like longing. Sometimes she would whine softly, but the cheetahs, busy with their own activities, rarely seemed to notice. 3 years passed. The cheetahs were now fully grown, powerful predators weighing over 100 pounds each, capable of running 70 miles per hour and taking down prey twice their size. They barely remembered their puppy days, or so everyone thought. They were wild now, in every sense that mattered. Then came the day that changed everything and challenged every assumption the staff had made. A severe thunderstorm had torn through Cincinnati, and the sanctuary had sustained significant damage. Several enclosures needed emergency repairs, fencing had to be replaced, and in the controlled chaos of contractors, staff, and emergency crews, protocols slipped. Bella somehow slipped through an open gate in the education center and wandered into the service corridor behind the cheetah habitat, a restricted area where she should never have been. By the time a volunteer spotted her and called it in over the radio, Bella was standing face to face with Zara through the feeding chute, just 4 feet apart,
with only the bars between them. Patricia's blood ran cold when she got the call. She grabbed her radio and ran, calling for backup and the tranquilizer rifle, but she knew in her gut there wasn't time. If Zara attacked through that opening, if she reached through those bars, Bella would be dead in seconds. When Patricia arrived, breathless and terrified, she saw the scene she'd been dreading. The cheetah was crouched low, muscles coiled, staring intently at the dog with an expression she couldn't quite read. Every instinct told her this was the moment everyone had feared, the moment when nature would prove stronger than nurture, when the predator would override the memory of love.
Then Zara made a sound that stopped Patricia's heart. It wasn't a growl or a hiss or the coughing roar of an aggressive cheetah. It was a chirp, high-pitched and insistent, the exact vocalization cheetah cubs make when calling for their mother, a sound Zara shouldn't even remember making. Bella's ears perked up instantly. She took one step forward and responded with a soft whine, accompanied by that specific tail wag, the same sound and motion she had used to call her babies 3 years ago. Zara chirped again, louder this time, and suddenly Luna and Thor appeared, rushing to the fence like magnets drawn to steel. All 3 massive cheetahs were making those baby sounds, their tails held high in greeting, their bodies relaxed and open. They remembered. Against all logic, across 3 years and the vast divide of species, they remembered their mother. Patricia made a decision that defied every safety protocol in the book. Her hands shaking, she carefully opened the gate to the main enclosure. Bella walked in without a moment's hesitation, and the 3 massive cheetahs surrounded her immediately. For one terrifying second, Patricia thought she'd made a fatal mistake, the kind that would haunt her for the rest of her life. But then they began rubbing their faces against Bella, purring so loudly the sound echoed through the entire sanctuary. They were greeting their mother with the same affectionate behavior they'd shown as cubs. Zara nuzzled Bella's neck. Luna licked her face with a tongue the size of a washcloth. Thor rubbed his massive head against her side, nearly knocking her over with affection. For the next hour, Patricia watched through tears as Bella and her cheetah cubs played together like no time had passed at all. The cheetahs were incredibly gentle, obviously conscious of their strength, treating the older dog with a tenderness that seemed impossible for wild predators. They groomed her carefully, their rough tongues smoothing her fur. They lay down beside her just like they had done as cubs, their purring like thunder. Bella licked their faces, her tail wagging non-stop, clearly overjoyed to be reunited with her babies. The sanctuary now allows supervised visits twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday afternoon. The sessions are carefully monitored, but they've never had a single incident. The bond between Bella and her cheetah cubs proved that love transcends every boundary we think exists in nature, every line we draw between species, every assumption we make about what's possible. Those cheetahs, despite growing into powerful hunters with all their predatory instincts intact, never forgot the golden retriever who saved their lives when they were hours from death. They never forgot the warmth of her belly, the sound of her heartbeat, the patient way she taught them about the world. They never forgot what family means. Sometimes the wildest hearts remember the gentlest love. Sometimes nature's rules bend in the face of something stronger than instinct. Sometimes a mother's love is the most powerful force in the animal kingdom.